Welcome back. As you know, I write for Comic Watch, and every week I do a roundup of the different comic book crowdfunding campaigns that are going on. And as I was perusing the list, I saw a name who I recognized since we're friends on Facebook, and apparently we've probably passed uh, in real life a couple of times because we were both fans of the Comic Geek Speak podcast community. So let me bring him in. We're going to find out about him and his Kickstarter. Hey Ryan, how's it going?
I'm doing well, Chad. How about you?
It's I'm doing something I enjoy doing. Talking to indie creators like yourself.
Yeah, it's one of the most. Yeah, it's always a fun thing. I've found that as I've gotten into doing the indie creator scene, it's like there's some of the best people to talk to. So they're a lot of fun.
So, on that note, why don't you tell us? Why don't we start off by you telling us about yourself as a comic book reader,
Yeah.
and maybe what, if you remember, maybe the first book you read, and what made you want to dip your toe into the.
Yeah. No, I can definitely tell you. So I wasn't a huge comic book person when I was a kid until I got into my teens. But I remember the very first comic that I ever got I'm a huge Star Wars fan. And so the very first comic that I got was Return of the Jedi. It was in like when you go to the toy store, they'd have those like 3-packs. And I don't remember what the other two comics were, but I remember it was Return of the Jedi #1, which was my favorite scene in all of Star Wars, which is the whole Jabba the Hutt scene and everything. So that comic became very well loved because I read it so many times and flipped through it so many times and everything. Because back then you didn't really have until you got the VHS and everything else, you didn't have a chance to like relive the scenes over and over again. The comics were the way to do that. So I remember that being the first comic, but like I said, I didn't get a whole lot of comics as a younger kid. But then once I was able to like ride my bike up to the comic shop and I was like mowing lawns for money and stuff like that, then I got kind of heavier into comics. And the comic story that got me really heavy into comics was DC Zero Hour. Because I heard, it's a good jumping on point, which little did I know that was a common thing that was said all the time. And I also found out how not true that was for Zero Hour, because you really needed to know a lot of history of DC to know that. What they should have said was all the titles after Zero Hour was a good jumping on point, because all the Zero issues were actually great jumping on points.
Yeah.
But the comic shop guy was like, because I said I loved it, I thought the story was great, I really enjoyed it, and the art was great, but I says I didn't understand a lot. And he goes, "Oh, you need to read Crisis on Infinite Earth." I was like, "Oh, okay." So I can't remember if I got the issues or how I got about reading it. I went and read that and was even more lost as to what was going on. But again, the story was fantastic. So I was like, I want to read more. And that kind of snowballed into me reading a lot more DC, and eventually I got into Marvel stuff and everything.
Well, then you had to go and read Flash of Two Earths,
Oh yeah, exactly. So, but I will say to this day, Crisis on Infinite Earths is my favorite comic book story of all time. Because it's one of those things, like I'll read it every couple of years and I get a little bit more out of it because I've gone back and read more things, and even modern day comics, like sometimes we'll have like these little nods to things from the past and references, and I think about like how Crisis fit into all of that. So yeah, that started that journey. As far as getting into actually creating my own comic, I found out way late in life that I've always been a storyteller. I love creating stories. So when I was a kid, like I had all my different toys playing with each other. So I had like G.I. Joe created the Transformers to help them fight Cobra, and then out from the ruins of a monument there came He-Man and Castle Grayskull. So it was all this intermingling of toys. So I was always like creating these stories in my head. And,
so the Energon universe is great for you.
Oh my God, I love the Energon universe. I'm a huge fan of the Energon universe. It helps too that there's amazing creators on it. So
yeah.
But yeah, really big on that right now. But yeah, so I did a podcast for speaking of the Energon universe. I did a podcast for 15 years called Star Joes.
Okay, yeah, I remember that one.
Yeah, so Star Wars, G.I. Joe, and we said everything in between. So we covered all the 1980s properties we grew up with and stuff. And I interviewed, much like you're doing with me, I interviewed comic creators because we focused a lot on the comic books that were either from the past or even coming out at the time. And got to know some of the comic creators, did a lot of interviews, and then, in fact, one of the artists for the variant cover for my comic is Robert Atkins, who drew for G.I. Joe. And he reached out to the show and was like, "Hey, would you like me to come on and talk about the comics that you guys are talking about?" And I was like, "Sure." Had him on again, shared a room with him at a convention, went to his house out when he lived in Springfield, Illinois. Appropriate since he worked on G.I. Joe. Little inside joke for those that know. And yeah, and then like him and I are very close friends now. But like I just kept interviewing people, and I was like, you know what? Much like the podcast, I'd listen to podcasts. I was like, well, I want to do my own. I was like, I like comics so much, and I love talking to these creators. I'm like, I kind of want to tell my own story. And what sparked finally me doing that was my wife has a real life nickname of Stealth Hammer. And I can mention where that came from, but we always joked to make a cool superhero name. And one year I had her commissioned by an artist who drew her as a superhero. And once I saw that drawing, I said to my wife, I was like, okay, maybe we could actually do something about this. And then that's how we decided to go ahead and make this comic. So.
Okay. So tell us a little bit more about the comic itself.
Yeah, so Stealth Hammer, it's an all ages superhero adventure. I say adventure because it's not like she's going out and patrolling the streets or anything like that. She's like on a hero's quest. But she lives in the regular world, but it's a world filled with like high tech gadgetry and supernatural mythology. I like pulling from world mythologies around the globe and stuff for inspiration of characters and everything. But her dad's like an inventor. He works for the government, and she finds herself in his lab the one day because she was supposed to introduce him to her boyfriend. She has a jealous and evil-sided uncle because everyone needs an evil uncle in their life, and he sabotages her father's lab. She doesn't know that, and
doesn't wear a red hat.
He does not wear a red hat, but he looks like he should. Actually, the inspiration for him and the inspiration for her dad was a little bit on Dr. Light and Dr. Wily from Mega Man. So I always loved that game and loved those characters. So. But she finds herself kind of like, because of this act of sabotage, finds herself trapped in this room. And there's also like this medallion in this room that was given to her by her grandmother. It's shown in the story how it kind of got there. And through the combination of this medallion being there and the dark matter energy that's going on. I feel like this is something I mentioned recently. I feel like back in the 50s and stuff, it was radioactive material gave everybody superpowers, and nowadays it's dark matter energy. So so that's what I went with. And she finds herself with superpowers, and she in the second issue she actually finds out like she's part of a legacy of family members that have either had some type of special ability. Like her father doesn't have superpowers, but he's extremely intelligent. So it's this family legacy of like people being given the tools that they need to be kind of like guardians of their generation. So her grandmother, she finds out, had powers, and her grandmother disappeared like 5 years ago. And her father kind of noticed things went kind of quiet after the grandmother disappeared. So he kind of thought everything was okay. And now his daughter has superpowers. And he's like, okay, I guess things aren't okay yet. So yeah, she's adventurous, just like her grandmother. She's smart, can work with some gadgets and stuff like that. That was one of the big things for me with telling this story is I wanted a character who it kind of made sense why she could do the things that she could do. Like I don't like Mary Sue characters. I hated it anytime you get a character who is like all of a sudden gets powers and knows how to fight. Like why? Right. Why do they also know how to fight? So there was things I put in with the character in the comic that I was like, okay, her dad's an inventor, so she would grow up in this lab. She grew up with technology. She knows how to kind of build things. She would have probably some intelligence because of that, like be a little smarter than your average bear. And then I was like, okay, well, let me establish that she already knows how to fight a bit, and how well. So in the very first pages of the first issue, I have her coming out of a judo studio, and I have one of her students telling her like, "Oh, see you next class," type of thing. So right from that, I felt like, okay, this establishes to the reader not only does she know judo, but she knows it well enough that she's teaching other people. So I'm like, okay, so now we have a basis for this character knows how to fight. So when she gets the powers and is able to fight characters, it's not weird. It's not like, well, where did this come from all of a sudden? So, but she's this happy-go-lucky character, and her mantra, which is actually a mantra my wife really uses in life, is that's not how the story ends. It's kind of like not giving up, and so she has this thing, and much like any other character, like right now she's on top of the world, but as the issues go on, she's going to start facing her challenges and her trials and things like that. So to become the hero she needs to be.
So, is she based on anybody? You said you were using your wife's mantra, but is she based on anybody that personally, or?
Yeah, I mean, she is based on my wife as far as like personality and stuff. Looks a little bit different than my wife, but she is based on my wife, and that's one of the big things for me is I do pull from. They say you write what you know, and like so I pull a lot of the personality from my wife and how she is. She has the character in the comic has a boyfriend loosely based on me. In fact, I've had people notice on the cover, they're like, yeah, he kind of looks like you a little bit too. But I was like, okay, this is the character I'll base my personality off of. He's got like uses humor as a defense mechanism. He's kind of feels a bit awkward at times, things like that. She has a pet dog. The dog is inspired by our real life dog that we had at the time. Just before that, we had a dog named Hannah that was a Labradoodle. She had passed away, and we thought, oh, this would be a great way to kind of memorialize her. We'll have this dog in there, and she is named Hannah. Like I said, her dad's based off of my wife's father. So there's some inspiration, but also Joel Jackson, my artist, he put a little bit of his dad into her father also. So like there were certain mannerisms and stuff like that Joel will draw into the character that he remembers his dad doing. So there, and then her grandmother disappeared. Her name's Patsy Sunshine. I based that off of my mother-in-law, who actually has the nickname of Patsy Sunshine. So there's, like I said, I'm drawing like different personalities from people that I actually know. So it makes life a lot easier. And then I'm from the Cleveland area, so there's like little references to Cleveland. So there's a character named Ari the Elf, and he's 216 years old, and 216 is the phone area code for Cleveland. So there's things like that I throw in there. She lives on 33 Cleveland Street. 33 is my wife's lucky number. Cleveland Street is obviously for Cleveland. So there's things like that. But then, like I mentioned too, I pull from world mythology. So she has different villains and different characters that pop up that are based on mythologies from across the globe. So I like kind of bringing them all together. Because again, I grew up in the 80s where it was like I had like things like Thunder the Barbarian and He-Man and things like that.
You and me both.
Yeah. So you bring those types of shows like brought together like magic and technology, and I always liked that. So I'm bringing some of that in my way into all of this.
So tell us a little more about the artist you're working with. How did you guys, get connected?
So Joel Jackson. So I initially started working with an artist. Her name is Alexandra Scott, and she was Robert, artist I mentioned earlier, introduced me to her, and she did a lot of the concept art and everything else. And then just timing and events worked out that she wasn't able to continue working on the comic. My wife reached out my wife's a graphic designer. So she actually did the title art. She did the logo for the character. She does the credits pages and things like that. So she's very involved in the comic. And my wife is not a comic book person, but she loves doing this one. So
yours too.
yeah, exactly. So she reached out to some. I was reaching out to some people that I knew. If I reached out to some artists that were out there in the industry that I thought maybe would be interested. But she reached out to some old classmates of hers and was just like, "Hey, my husband's looking to a comic book. He's looking for someone that can do like this cartoony style, but also detailed, because I knew it's going to want a lot of things in the background and such." And one of her classmates was like, "Yeah, my buddy Joel, that's what he does." And he's like, "Here's his, website and everything else. Check it out. You can reach out to him." And I went and looked at his website, and it was exactly what I was looking for. And then it was even more confirmed, because on his website it said, "Joel dreams of one day still of being a Transformer or He-Man." And I was like, okay, we're going to get along great. So, but he's in Columbus, Ohio. I'm in the Cleveland area, so we're not too far away from each other, surprisingly. So that was great. And then I had a contact through Robert for a colorist, which the first issue was colored by Ross Hughes, who's done work on like Justice League and Green Lantern and a bunch of different titles. He did the first issue. He kind of retired a bit after that first issue. I like to think it wasn't because of me. And then the letterer is Dave Sharp, and Dave Sharp is a longtime guy in the industry. I actually had someone ask me one time, like, "How did you get Dave Sharp to do your lettering?" I was like, "I asked him and I paid him." So that's all it takes sometimes. But yeah, so he's done all 3 issues. He's going to do the 4th issue. We have changed colorists at times. So second issue, I had Chris Sotomayor did a few pages plus the cover. Legend in the industry and coloring. He just was overwhelmed. I think he was working on Batman at the time or something, and he's just like, "I just can't take on even more." And I was like, "That's fine." So I found another colorist named Luis Delgado, who worked on the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Last Ronin story, and he did a few other things. So he finished the coloring work on this second issue. Third issue, he was not available. He had too much work going on for him. So then we found Heather Breckel, who worked on like My Little Pony and a few other titles. I think she even worked on TMNT at one point. And here to come to find out, she lives in Columbus, Ohio too. So so she did the 3rd issue. She's doing the coloring for the 4th issue as well. So
nice. So coming, from the background of not being a writer, what were there any challenges that you have faced or had to overcome as you've gone through from when you started to now?
Yeah, so thankfully for me, I always liked writing. I was a psychology major in college, but I probably could have minored in English writing. So storytelling again was like something I was comfortable with. But yeah, doing the actual writing and everything else, what I did was I actually reached out to a friend who worked as a writer and had been editor before, and I was like, "Can you look at my script and give me some feedback?" And he did. And I was like, "Please be brutal," and he was, which is great. I'm very open to critical feedback, so it was great that he was able to do that. And then I just felt comfortable after that. After that, it was just like I would write the script for the next issue. I would have Joel read it to make sure that it made sense to him. He would come back with feedback. I had my wife read it. I've had friends read the scripts and stuff like that. And I would say every single script for every single issue would go through about 5 or 6 rewrites. Just making sure the flow made sense. One of the things that I do is I call it a writer's storyboard. So people are familiar with like seeing for behind the scenes for movies. You have the storyboards with the little drawings of like this scene to this scene to that scene. It's kind of like that, except I draw like boxes that will represent each page, and then I put little bullet points, quick bullet points of here's what's going to happen on this page, here's what's going to happen on this page, here's what's going to happen on this one. And then that allows me to kind of move things around of like for pacing and for reveals and things like that. And once I kind of have those outlines where I want them to be, then I actually start writing the script. And then, like I said, then it'll go through several rewrites before. And in fact, it'll go through at least, like this one, it'll go through at least one more rewrite before it goes to the printer. Because Joel will draw stuff, and I always put in the feedback, like I put how many panels there'll be and like what happens in each scene, but I give him complete freedom that, hey, even though I said 5 panels on this page, and here's what happens in all of them, if you think you could tell the same story in 4 panels, or you need to go 7 panels, you do what you feel is best for the page, and then I'll work around that. So then he'll send me the pages back, and before I send it to Dave to do the lettering, I do one more rewrite, because sometimes it might be a matter of like, okay, this will flow better if I change this type of wording for this character. And then there's times too where Joel does such an amazing job with his art, I don't want to cover it up. so I'll like shorten how much my character is talking. So I still get the same message across, but I can show more of the artwork that's there.
So, what writers, I guess, influence your style of writing?
Oh my God. So the GOAT for me is Jeff Johns. I mean, he's just the best. He takes characters, he takes ideas and just runs with it. So for sure. And in fact, I had, when Robert Atkins saw I sent him the script for the first issue. He goes, yeah, you're very detailed. He says, your scripts remind me of Jeff Johns' scripts. And I go, oh, well, I'll take that all day long. But other writers, like I love Cullen Bunn. I think he does a phenomenal job. Charles Soule does some great stuff. Jason Aaron just recently, his run on Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was phenomenal, and I've loved a lot of his indie work and everything. So, and then there's writers that I love, but I don't write like them. Like I'll give you an example, like Brian Michael Bendis. I think he's a phenomenal writer. He tells some amazing stories, but I'll never do the 9-panel grid of characters talking. But yeah, so I would say like if I can write like John's when it comes to comics. Now when it comes to like books and stuff like that, there's since I'm a huge Star Wars fan, there's writers like Timothy Zahn or Kevin J. Anderson and things like that I love their writing style and how they tell a story.
So let's kind of get into the Kickstarter itself. What are you offering for your reward levels?
Yeah, so we always have the digital comic available, and we try to keep everything affordable for people. So the digital comic's $5. You can get then the printed issue itself, main cover printed issue, for $7. That'll come with both the printed copy and you'll get the digital copy. And then we have like starter packs. So if you've never read Stealth Hammer before and you're like, I want to get in on it, we have both a starter pack for digital. We have a starter pack for print, and the print one will actually save you a few bucks versus buying them all separately. And then we always have our combo pack, and our combo pack is probably the most popular because you get the main cover, you get the variant cover, you get the bookmark, you get 5 mini prints, and you get digital coloring book, and so you can just print pages off and color them as much as you want. Or if you like coloring digitally, you can do it that way too. And then there'll be a sticker sheet too. So that's all for like $35. And then we do have one that's called Origin of a Hero, and that's where you'll get all the things I just mentioned. Plus, you'll get this copy of the original script. And what I do is not only do you get the script and I sign it and stuff, but I go back, kind of like another rewrite. I go back and I put kind of like writer's notes along the margins. So you get to see behind the scenes of like, what was I thinking about for this scene, and what were, any type of little stories that were going on.
Like when DVDs used to do the commentaries.
Yes, exactly. It's exactly what it is. Every page has got the writer's commentary on it. So,
and saying that made me feel like I was aging myself.
I'm right there with you. We're good. But yeah, then if you love Joel's artwork, there's a commission level, so you can get art, you can get all the comic stuff and everything, but you can also get him to draw any character you want. And he does amazing job on those commissions. This is not like a commission you'd get just at like a convention real quick or anything like that. He puts a lot of time into each one. And then you can also, in this particular issue, you can either have your name in the issue somewhere, so it'll be like on maybe a sign or something like that, or if you really want to go to the top tier, you can have yourself drawn into the issue. So you can actually be a character in the issue. And then in the back of the issue, we're going to actually have like a little Where's Waldo. So there'll be a little thumbnail about either where your name or where you appear in the issue, and giving you credit and everything else. The great thing about it too is, with either one of those levels, we've never done the name thing before, but I can see this working the exact same way. Once you've become a character in this world, you might appear again without you having to back it at that level. So I have friends and people that I know that backed it at that level for the first issue, and they are like reoccurring characters now. In fact, one of them is a main character in this issue. He plays this agent character, and we learn more about him in this issue and everything. But yeah, he backed it at that level in the first issue, and then I kept bringing him back. And there's other reoccurring characters and stuff. So it is something like, oh, you might appear like on the pinup page, or you might appear in the story somewhere. But then once you're in our catalog, man, it's one of those things like, oh, this is a character I can bring back and have him appear here and have him appear there. So it's not just necessarily a one and done. And same thing with the name. Like if we use your name for like a sign of a store or something like that, that store might then start becoming a regular place in the story. So
Yeah, nice. So I know I don't know if I can't remember if we mentioned this before we started, but how is this experience, doing a Kickstarter compared to, the other issues?
It's more involved. It requires more effort on the part of us as creators, I would say. Just so that's the negative side of it. Like one of the things that I think we talked about before is like when you do the first issue, everyone's like, oh, first issue, I want to jump in on that. But as you keep doing more issues, people are like it's tougher to get people to jump on. But that's why we always make the previous issues available for people, because if it's your first time there, we want you to get the full experience. Because the first, to give you a rundown, like the first issue is her origin story. It's how she gets her powers. It's kind of like a nod to the Golden Age, where she gets her powers, she fights the bad guy, kind of end of story. There's little hints that there's other things going on, but that's about it. And then the second issue is where we really open up the story. Like you get a glimpse, the reader gets a glimpse of like, okay, here's the world we're actually living in. And I've actually had people that read the first issue, liked it, thought it was good, read the second issue, and they were like, oh, I didn't know this is where we were going. In a good way. And then the third issue was actually a flashback for Ari the Elf. And how did he get wrapped up into all this? And you do get to see little moments from the first two issues, but it's from his perspective. This issue is all about the bad guys. We're bringing on the bad guys in this one, which is what the Kickstarter's titled. And we get to see a lot. We've seen some villains along the way, but we get to get introduced to a whole lot of villains in this one. So that's the fun part. The other fun part for me is about doing an issue at this point is, I think I kind of mentioned, like, I feel like my writing's getting stronger. So like every issue, I feel like I'm getting better and better. In fact, if I had a chance to rewrite the first issue, I might do it a little differently, because you're always critical of yourself. But and then Joel, I feel like his artwork's getting better. Like I would say, if you're a fan of like George Perez type art, where there's like stuff to see in the background, there's a lot of stuff going on, you want to see Joel's artwork, because he puts so much detail into a page. It's ridiculous. And like I cannot even express like this issue, because I think he's been given a little bit more time this time. Every page I'm getting from him is like blowing my mind. Like it's and I know creators say that all the time, but I like sincerely mean it. Like I can stare at his pages forever. Like there's one of his in the second issue, I have it right here. He did this 2-page spread. where there's just so much going on there. And he puts that in every single page, and he's doing that with this issue too. It's unreal.
Now, is this? Are you hoping this is an ongoing, or is it just like a mini limited series for the time being, or see how the
Yeah,
winds blow?
yeah. So it's intended to be an ongoing. I mean, it has a definitive ending. So, but that definitive ending is like pretty far down the line. I probably have enough story to be telling like 30 to 40 issues, maybe 50. But I have mapped out the first 6 issues. Like I know exactly what is happening beat for beat in the first 6 issues. So we're doing issue 4 right now. I already have issue 5 and 6 already mapped out and planned. I know where it's going to end. And that'll be our nice like story arc. And once we do that, I do plan hopefully do like a collected edition of this. And I'm hoping that we can get picked up by a publisher, because I would love to do more than just 1 issue a year, because otherwise we're never going to get done with this series. I'll be 95 and wrapping it up. So, because we've been trying to do just like 1 issue a year. We don't want to like tap into people too often and stuff like that. But yeah, I've had just an amazing experience. And yeah, so the first arc, it's going to end with a good cliffhanger, but it'll have like some nice revelations and everything else. But yeah, it's been a fun journey, and I've had so many positive experiences from it. I had a lady one time that just last year came up to my table and was like, she's like, my family loves your comic. And I was like, oh, thank you so much. And there was a magnet on the table that had the tagline of "That's not how the story ends." And she pointed to it and was like, this right here, my family's going through a tough medical situation, and this has become our mantra to help us get through it. And I was like, oh my God. Okay. Thank you. Like I was like tearing up and stuff like that. Cause it's one of those things you just never know, like how something you're doing is impacting people. Needless to say, I gave her the magnet and told her to hang it up on her fridge so her family could always be reminded of that they're going to get
$10 later.
Right. No. We might be, needing every dollar to get the issues, but sometimes you still have to do stuff for free. So,
Right. So, is there anything different that you're seeing besides it being not a first issue, with like the way that the campaign is going? Is it ebbing and flowing?
Yeah, so right now, we had a really great first few days. Like it really took off the first few days, which was fantastic. And this is typical for Kickstarters, is that it's now like plateauing, and it's creeping up a little bit and everything else. And hopefully there'll be a big spike at the end. But yeah, like I would encourage people to not just with my Kickstarter, but any Kickstarter, if you're interested in our project or anybody's project, is if it's in the middle of it and you're not sure, like, well, do I want to back it now? It seems like it's like kind of in the middle somewhere. So back it, because at the end of the day, you only get charged if the person reaches their goal. Right. But I've had so many people go like, oh, I'm looking forward to the issue coming out, and I'll pick it up at the comic shop, or I'll pick it up on your website. So I'm like, the only way that's going to happen is if you help support it now. Yeah. I put a lot of my own money into the issue before it ever goes to Kickstarter to try to keep the goal as low as possible. I do not take any money from the Kickstarter. I don't even reimburse myself for what I put into it. All of the money goes towards my creative team to make sure that they're paid well for their time and the printing costs. 100% of it goes into all of that. And like I said, I've literally sold some of my own comic collection and collectibles and stuff like that to help pay for this dream of mine to become reality. So know that whatever you give is extremely appreciated, whether it's $5, whether it's $1, every little bit helps us get to that goal. So again, if you check it out and you're like, oh, this looks fun, I can pretty much promise you that it is as fun as it looks. So, appreciate, like I said, anyone that's able to back it and help make this next issue a reality. So,
well, is there anything else that perhaps we didn't cover that you want to, besides that
Sure.
important part?
Yeah. No, I think the only other thing that I think is kind of fun for people to know, it's kind of like helping, is kind of something else I did that came out of doing the comic, is I started doing like public speaking at like libraries and schools, and I talk about them, talk to a lot of kids and everything about storytelling and the importance and how it impacts every aspect of your life. But then I go into how a comic book's created, and at the very end, I have them help me create a superhero. So I have them give me like 3 superpowers, 3 personality traits, how the character got their superpower, whether it's like magic or they were born with it. I had one kid that suggested they got it from a radioactive toilet. So that was a lot of fun. And then I have them give.
You gotta watch out for those.
Right, exactly, all the time. Especially at like sports stadiums and stuff. But they and then I have them give me a superhero name for that character.
Uh-huh.
And then what I do is I go home and I sit down for like 30 to 60 minutes and write an origin story based off all their suggestions, kind of like I call it like a writer's improv. And then I put it on the Stealth Hammer website. So we have a website, it's just stealthhammer.com. And you can actually, there's a link right there to the Kickstarter, but there's also a section called Speaker Stories. And you can see all the suggestions that people made at certain events. And then you can click on it and actually read the story that I created. And I always tell them, like, it's not going to be Shakespeare, but it'll be fun. So, but I put every element in there. I think the most challenging thing I ever had as a girl, one time I asked for personality traits, and she said purple. So I went home. It's improv, so you have to say yes. So I went home and looked up what purple meant. What personality traits are associated with the color purple? And I got some suggestions from Google, and I just ran with that. And of course, the character's colors that she wore were purple and things like that. So it's a fun little side thing. I never thought that I'd be doing something like that, but it was fun. It came out of doing the comic. I had how that all started. I had a local newspaper that wrote an article about the comic book, and she then reached out and said, "Hey, my daughter's school likes to have people to come out to talk to the class and everything. Would you like to come out?" And I was like, "Yeah, that'd be fun." And I'm thinking a class, like 30 kids in a classroom. And I was like, "How many kids will be there?" And she's like, "I'll be like 400." I was like, "Oh, okay." So I made like a formal presentation. Thankfully, I'm not nervous talking in public. So
I was going to say, good thing you did say, I had this crippling, fear of talking in front of a lot of people.
Yeah. Well, I always go back to, there's a Seinfeld joke where he says the number 1 fear in America is public speaking. The number 2 fear is death, which means that if you're at a funeral, you'd rather be in the casket than giving the eulogy. So thankfully I don't have that problem, but yeah, it was a cool experience. And then, like I said, I've gone to like libraries and everything else since then, and it's that's helped too. So
nice. Well, as we kind of wrap up here, you want to give one last pitch for the Kickstarter, where people can find you, and if you're on social media.
Yeah, if you so for the Stealth Hammer itself, we have a website, like I said, stealthhammer.com. You can find a link to the Kickstarter right there. You can also look up Stealth Hammer on Kickstarter. Stealth Hammer is on Blue Sky, Instagram, Facebook. I'm on Substack, and so I'm posting on all those places. There's a newsletter you can sign up for and get behind the scenes stuff like concept art and everything else that we've done for the comic, and some stories, behind the scenes stories and everything like that. So that's been a lot of fun. I said it's all ages, and I mean all ages when it comes to the comic in the truest sense. I've had people from age 5 to literally 94 years old read the comic and enjoy it. So it's the type of all ages like that I grew up with, which is like when you picked up Spider-Man, you could pick up Spider-Man at any age and enjoy it. That's the type of story I'm trying to tell here. So, so don't think that it's like, oh, all ages. Okay, it's for like 8-year-olds or something like that. No, it's literally for anyone of any age. So, so yeah, like I said, go to the website, check out the artwork, go to the Kickstarter. We have some preview pages on the Kickstarter itself. And if you like what you see there, I guarantee you're going to love the comic. So,
All right. Well, I want to thank you for taking the time this evening to chat, and you can also, if you know, people can also go to Comic Watch on Saturdays or anytime, and just search on our site, The Corner, and that's where we cover projects like this and help get the word out. And Brian, it was great to. I'm going to say meet you again because I'm sure.
I'm sure we met each other at some of those events. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there was, yeah. So, but it was great chatting with you, and
Thank you for having me on. It was fantastic
well,
experience.
well, when you're ready for the next issue, we'll
Yeah.
do this again and see how this went and where things are going.
Sounds good. I appreciate it.
All right. Well, you have a good evening.
You too.